Freedom can be easily considered to be a complex and complicated reality because it has always been that way, and no one has ever been able to understand and decipher the full meaning of freedom, and that's why people struggled for it in the first place, and they struggled and suffered for acquiring freedom, and they eventually died without freedom. So, if freedom is so easy, and if people believe that they can have it, then why are they always struggling for freedom in the first place? And we are also struggling for freedom, even though we like to say that we have it. And that means we do not have freedom as we always like to believe. So, freedom is complicated and twisted and broken also. And freedom can also be distorted with the help of power, influence, and domination in society by the evil people. And that's what they did. And that's why many people struggled for freedom and died eventually out of suffering, sorrow, torture, and torment. Leaders, politicians, and authoritarians came into the world, assumed power, and misused their freedom to actually dominate, discriminate, and divide their people, and their people died eventually without freedom. So in the present also is being misused because freedom is something which has always had the potential of being misused, and it has been misused thus far, and that's why there has been so much madness, mayhem, death, and destruction in the world as a consequence of war, conflict, and authoritarian leaders misusing freedom. So, freedom is not something which is confined to individuals, but rather it's general, and that's why it can be abused and misused by influential, powerful, and possessive people in the world in the form of leaders or democrats or even authoritarians. So, politicians have misused freedom as well, and the fundamental problem that comes with freedom and its application is that it requires responsibility and accountability from the individual and from all people in general. If we truly believe that we have freedom, then we have to be willing to apply responsibility and accountability towards ourselves, towards our actions, and our freedom as well. Because if we are not responsible and accountable for our freedom and for our actions, then obviously we are going to misuse it, and that is going to create a lot of chaos, confusion, and disorder in society and for everyone in general. And that's why freedom comes with great responsibility and accountability, and freedom can only be used morally and ethically by those people who are willing to be wise, intelligent, and moral at all times. So, people with integrity, morality, and character are going to be able to use their freedom effectively, wisely, and intelligently without harming anything or anyone. So, a freedom is something which has always demanded responsibility and accountability, but we have not actually understood responsibility itself. We have always been unwilling to admit to and take responsibility and accountability for who we are, what we represent, and what we do. And that has led to the misuse of our freedom that we have, and that has obviously led to a lot of destruction and disorder and disconformity in society. And that's why there is so much crime, corruption, and other forms of evils prevailing in society as well, because freedom is being misused. And that's why freedom is something which must be used with great responsibility and accountability. We have to take responsibility for the freedom that we have or that we own. And if we do not, then we're obviously going to misuse it, and freedom is going to be misused and create unwanted problems and undesirable consequences, not only in our own life but also in society in general. And that's why the first fundamental problem with freedom is that it's very difficult to understand in its nature and application. And also, it comes with responsibility that not everyone is capable of taking and managing in the first place. And another, or the second fundamental and unavoidable problem with freedom is that it can be distorted and manipulated with the help of power, influence, and domination in society. And that's why the people that actually have power, influence, and domination are able to have more freedom in comparison to the normal people in society, people that belong to the upper middle class or people that belong to the elite class who have control over economy and wealth of the country seem to have more freedom in their hands in comparison to the normal or the poor people in society. So if we are poor, then we are going to have no freedom. And if we have freedom, then it's going to be very little and limited in its access, use, and applicability. So freedom is something that can also be manipulated and distorted by politics, manipulation, control, yield, and influence. And that's why the powerful, wealthy, and influential people in society and in the country seem to have and they experience actually more freedom than the normal middle class people or the poor in society. The poor, in other words, have no freedom whatsoever. They are just not going to be able to do anything at their own will because they are being already discriminated and divided and oppressed by the rich people that use them as laborers for the achievement of their ends, for building projects, buildings, and other architectures. The poor people are being exploited, in other words, and that means they have actually no freedom. They virtually have no freedom, even if the government and the constitution says a lot of things about freedom and then it's accessible to and by everyone. But in reality, the picture is quite different because everything can be manipulated in this society with the help of money, power, influence, and domination. And that's why the elite people have access to all the freedom to do almost anything with anyone, regardless of the consequences to the other people in society. And that's why the elite people have been constantly exploiting and discriminating the poor people for achieving their own evil and selfish ends. Poor people are being used as tools for the government, for creating and building different things. They are being used as laborers, and that means they have no freedom no matter what the politicians say or do, and that is a tragedy. So freedom comes with great responsibility at first, and if we are not careful and cautious about the freedom that we have, then it's going to be misused by our desires, impulses, and emotions. And that's why we have to be responsible and accountable from within ourselves, and we also have to regulate our actions by virtue, morality, integrity, and character so that our freedom is not misused in any shape or form. We need to actually, we must try to use our freedom morally, intelligently, and wisely so that it's used in the manner it should be used to the benefit of ourselves as well as the others in society. And the rich people do not take responsibility or accountability for the unlimited freedom that they seem to have and that they seem to experience. And that's why there has been so much disparity, disintegration, and division between the normal and the poor people in society, because the rich people don't take responsibility and use their freedom in any way they want. They spend their wealth in any way they want. They start construction projects at any places in the country with the help of the government, which is obviously biased and partial towards the elite people in the country. So rich people and the politicians are completely reckless and irresponsible entities that misuse freedom, and their misuse of freedom leads to widespread discrimination and a large disparity in terms of income, economy, and other social rights of the normal people and the poor people as well in society. So that is the first problem, as I have tried to discuss with you, that freedom has to be used, and it must be used with a great moral responsibility and character. And the second fundamental problem with freedom is that it can always be manipulated, at least in modern society, with the help of wealth, power, and influence. And that's why the truly wealthy, powerful, and influential people in society have access to more freedom, and they seem to experience more freedom from the government in their life because they are wealthy, and they can actually contribute to the government in terms of money and finance. And that's why the government obviously gives more freedom to the rich and wealthy people, and they misuse that freedom. So freedom is something which is not equal. Freedom can never be considered to be a equal, just moral construct, but rather it's a discriminatory, divided, and distorted reality, because it can be distorted and manipulated by influence, power, and by governments and politicians as well. And that's why politicians experience more freedom than the normal people, and the elite wealthy people actually have access to more freedom because of the government to do almost anything they want to do in the society and in the country as well. And that's why we are seeing and witnessing widespread economic and social discrimination and large scale freedom disparity as well between all the people in the society, because there is so much divide in terms of class, caste, and wealth, that freedom can never become complete in society because of the existence of so many types of people at the same time. And if there are millionaires and billionaires in society, then obviously there is going to be no freedom left for the middle class and the poor people in society, because all the freedom is going to be squeezed and taken away by the rich and the elite people in society with the help of the government, because the government itself has been corrupt thus far. It is corrupt now also, and therefore it gives freedom and access to almost anything to the elite people in society. So freedom first requires responsibility and accountability from all people, and secondly, freedom can be manipulated and distorted with the help of wealth, influence, and power in society. And the influential and wealthy people, that's why, experience more freedom, because they have access to more freedom in the first place to do almost anything they want because of the government's consent and agreement in it.